basis to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarane. If everyone could put on their camera, that would be very nice. Cluchite et the video. Nectar instruction, text 6. Drishtai Swabhava Janiter Vapushascha Doshar Na Prakritatvam Iha Bhakta Janasya Pashat Gangam Vasam Na Kalubud Budapena Pankar Brahma Dravatvam Abhigachati Niradharmai. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee having a body, born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. Nectar of instruction is a continuation, or we should say, it's a summary of the Nectar devotion, which is a summary of the, or more or less, it's a summary of our whole philosophy. Srimad Bhagavatam. In the fourth verse, Srila Rupa Goswami had said that Dadati Pratigrinati Guyam Akiti Prichati Guyam Chaiva, let's see, Dadati Pratigrinati Guyam Akiti Prichati Punkte Bojayate Chaiva Shadvidam Priti Lakshana. That there are 6 loving exchanges between devotees, namely offering gifts in charity and receiving charitable gifts, offering prasadam and accepting prasadam, revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. Now, naturally, because our process is bhakti, therefore, these 6 loving exchanges are the basis of our advancement in spiritual life. Prabhupada had written in purport that even in ordinary dealings between ordinary people, there are these 6 loving exchanges. For instance, a businessman goes to a restaurant with his client and they share a meal together. They exchange some confidential talks. Maybe some gifts are exchanged, etc. So similarly in devotional service, there are these loving exchanges, but they should be exchanged appropriately. As Srila Goswami says in the 5th verse, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chat pranitivis chabhajantam isham shushu shaya vigam ananya anya indati shunya hridaya ipsita sangalabdya. That one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name. One should offer obeisances to the devotee who's undergone initiation and is engaged in worshiping the deities. And one should faithfully serve that pure unalloyed devotee who is advanced in devotional service, and his heart is devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So all these devotees, whether it be the Kanista Adhikari, who's trying to chant the holy name, or the Madhyama Adhikari, who is trying to advance in undeviated devotional service, steady devotional service, or the pure devotee, the Uttama, or the most advanced devotee, who is developing actual consciousness of Krishna, and therefore he's fallen in love to different degrees with Krishna. And similarly, he sees everyone and everything as they're related to Krishna. So this is also, all these devotees are under the spiritual energy. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita about those who know him, he says, Mahatmanas tumam bharata daivim prakritim ashritya bhajana manaso gyatva bhutadim aviyam. Those who are Mahatmas, great souls, they're under the protection of the spiritual energy. They're engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Lord, original and inexhaustible. And then Krishna explains the same thing that Rupa Goswami explains in the Bhakti Rasamrita, in the Nectar of Instruction, that at the beginning, if one is simply chanting Sadatam Kirtiyandamam, trying to chant Hare Krishna, then one is under the spiritual energy. One may be conscious of that spiritual energy, or one may be unconscious of the spiritual energy, but one is still under the spiritual energy just by chanting Hare Krishna, especially if the mantra is received in disciple succession. Although it is said that the Mayavadis, they also chant Hare Krishna, but their chanting is not in disciple succession. Disciple succession meaning they don't know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They think that by chanting Hare Krishna, they'll become Krishna. Such chanting does not put one under the protection of the spiritual energy. Instead, it degrades one so that one will find oneself in a lower position in the proximate, in one's next life. But if one chants Hare Krishna as it's received through the disciple succession, although one may not be actively engaged in devotional service, but to one degree or another, one is still under the spiritual energy. And therefore, one should respect such a devotee within one's mind, at least. The idea is that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. But those parts of Krishna's creation that are under Krishna's influence of the spiritual energy, they should be appreciated by the devotees who are trying to advance in Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends upon knowledge, but that knowledge should lead to appreciation, and that appreciation should lead to service. Therefore, if one is chanting Hare Krishna, one should try to find how that devotee is under the spiritual energy. Or one should try to understand how such a person is under the spiritual energy and respect them within one's mind, because somehow or another the soul is engaged in his normal position of, in some way or another, serving Krishna. But those devotees who have actually uh, understood to one degree or another the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and have accepted themselves as Krishna's servants, in this age, servants of the holy name, they should be offered obeisances. This is the Madhyama Adhikari, or intermediate devotee, who sees Krishna as the object of love, prema. And he tries to make friends with the devotees, Maitri. And he tries to help the innocent, Kripa. And he avoids the atheist, the envious, Upeksha. This is the proper way of cultivating devotional service, Srila Prabhupada explains in the 5th verse. To try to love Krishna and make friends with the devotees. Friends does not mean that we go to the movies together. Friends mean that we engage in the 6 loving exchanges and we offer not ordinary food, but prasadam, and we accept prasadam, food offered to Krishna. And at the same time, we explain to one another how we've advanced in Krishna consciousness, what we've done that has brought us to a stage of higher consciousness of Krishna. Just like Narada Muni in the first canto, when he came to the Himalayas, where Vyasadeva was there, and Vyasadeva was lamenting about how he was dissatisfied, although he had compiled the entire Vedic literature and put it in an order that people in this age could more easily understand. Still, he was not satisfied. So Narada Muni didn't immediately tell him that he was in Maya. He did tell him his life, his own personal story of how he had become Narada Muni, how he had been a demigod in his previous life, how Prabhupada said he was in the heavenly planets listening to rock music. I don't know what kind of rock music they have in the heavenly planets, but it was better than the rock music we have here. Prabhupada said that instead of glorifying Krishna at this festival, Narada Muni was surrounded by beautiful ladies, demigoddesses, and they were glorifying the other demigods. Now, that's not so bad, but Brahma, Shiva, the other demigods, did not appreciate Narada Muni's and these ladies glorifying the demigods, and so he was cursed to become a Sudra in his next lifetime. Still, when he became a Shudra, the son of a maidservant, during the rainy season, the Mahabhagavats, the pure devotees, came and took shelter where his mother was. And she served them during the rainy season for 4 months. And Narada Muni got a chance to also serve these great devotees, the Mahabhagavats. And what did he do? He heard them chanting. And I guess he also was chanting. He took prasadam and inquired from them how to advance in spiritual life. So he had the association of the Mahabhagavats, and he engaged in the 6 loving exchanges with them. And so, following their instructions, he performed devotional service and eventually absorbed his mind in Krishna consciousness and became Narada Muni in his next lifetime. So the devotees, they talk to one another about what their personal experience is, as it is said in the Nectar of Chaitanya Charitamrita 147. that Shikshaguru Ta, Krishna Shikshake Ta, Shikshaguru Ke Ta, Krishnera Sarup, Antaryami Bhakti Shrestha Eduri Rup. That one should know that the super soul, Krishnera Sarup. So it said that Shikshaguru Ta Krishnera Sarup. That one should know the Shikshaguru as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Antaryami Bhakti Shrestha Eduri Rup. That both the super soul dwelling within our heart, as well as the best of the devotees, they're manifestations of Krishna. Now, in the purport, Prabhupada explains that there are two types of Shiksha gurus. The one who's absorbed in transcendence and sees everything objectively. Objectively means that one sees reality. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, many times he says, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastani Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana, that the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with an equal vision the learned and gentle Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, the dog, and the dog eater. In other words, one does not see others in relation, only in relation to their body, but one also sees the soul along with the supreme soul in everyone's heart. Or as Krishna says, he knows that neither the soul nor the supreme soul within every body is ever destroyed. He actually sees. And one who can see this, the Supreme Lord, samam pashanti sarvatra samavasti tam ishwaram nehenastyatmanatmanam tatoyati param gitim. One who sees the Supreme Lord coming in all bodies, and who knows that neither the soul, and equal everywhere, does not degrade himself by his mind, and thus he approaches the supreme destination. So such a devotee, he knows that the soul is either liberated or entangled in the material world simply according to his desires. But when the soul does not know what to desire for his own benefit, therefore he becomes entangled by ignorance. But when the soul knows what to do, how to engage in Krishna consciousness, and that the goal is Krishna, then he comes under the spiritual energy. So the soul has a relation with Krishna eternally and can choose whether he wants to develop that relationship consciously or remain conscious and simply serve Krishna under the spell of the illusory energy. In any case, the soul remains dependent on Krishna either for spiritual elevation or for material degradation. Therefore, a devotee who's trying to make friendship, that he engages in the six loving exchanges by talking about, explaining to the devotees in some way or another how to help them advance in Krishna consciousness. And similarly, one's friends are those who also help us advance in Krishna consciousness by their example and by their instructions or by their telling their own experience, how they made some progress in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to go to class every day, and a class should be devotees revealing their own personal experiences of how how they've helped or what they've done that has helped them advance in Krishna consciousness. And the third is that
Hare Krishna, is it just me or Maharaj is gone?
Yeah, the connection is not good for him.
Okay, very good.
Guru Maharaj, you are muted.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
We can hear you now.
Yeah. I'm in a third world country.
Where you are, Maharaj, Gurudev?
New York.
Oh, okay. I was guessing. Yeah, I saw.
Maybe it's a second world country. I'm not really so sure. Anyhow, the internet went off. So I was saying that the there was a devotee named Bhakta Robert who was attending Dr. Misra's classes, and he became attracted to Srila Prabhupada. And so he asked Prabhupada one time to give him the Hare Krishna mantra. And so Srila Prabhupada wrote it down on a piece of paper and gave it to him in a way that it was like he was offering him $1 million. So this giving people a holy name is the greatest gift that one can give anyone. Of course, because we don't charge anything, therefore sometimes people don't appreciate it as much as they should. Now, Srila Prabhupada writes at the end of the purport of his commentary, that our business is to, or those who are giving instructions, because we're supposed to work under the highest instructions, their business is to teach us how to understand who's on what level of devotional service. Now, one's ability to do so will depend upon one's own understanding, one's own judgment, or ability to ascertain different levels of devotees, so that we can exchange these six loving exchanges with them appropriately. Now, as I was saying, that those who see things objectively, the Mahabhagavat, who is transcendental to all material conceptions, because he sees everyone and everything in relation to Krishna. Therefore, he's the most expert at training one in these six loving exchanges. Now, there are others who are not on that level, who do not see things as objectively as the Mahabhagavad, but they have experience, like Narada Muni had his experience and explained it to Vyasadeva to help him advance in devotional service. So, although they see things more subjectively, not perfectly, still they can assist those who are either on the same level as they are or on a lower level of devotional attainment. In any case, and then, Prabhupada writes in the last sentence in that paragraph that the Acharya, in the true sense of the term, who is authorized to deliver Krishna, enriches the devotee with full transcendental knowledge and thus awakens him to the activities of devotional service. In other words, everyone has the same, all devotees who are practicing and instructing Krishna consciousness have the same objective, to assist others in awakening their Krishna consciousness. It is simply a question of whose different levels of capability of doing so. In any case, when we identify who's on the level of better than us, Uttama, as will be explained in the 6th verse that I read before at the beginning. Uttama means they're more steady in their service than we are, and they're more enthusiastic than we are about devotional service. So for each one of us personally, some devotees are more enthusiastic in devotional service, some are more steady in the execution of sadhana bhakti. So they should be taken to us as uttama. And for those who are on the same level as us, they should be taken on the level of madhyama, and we should try to make friends with them, just like those who are uttama to us. And if we don't see anyone as uttama to us, higher than us, more steady in devotional service and more enthusiastic, then we're in quite a bit of difficulty, because we'll never be able to advance in devotional service. Or I should say, if we don't see anyone as uttama to us, at least we should see Srila Prabhupada as uttama to us. If we can't understand how Prabhupada was more steady in his devotional service and more enthusiastic than we are, then we're in the wrong movement. And in relationship to Prabhupada's exalted devotional service, we can also see the other devotees, how much they're actually following Srila Prabhupada, repeating the same instructions according to their own realizations, and how they're following Prabhupada's instructions to, as he did as an acharya, engage in sadhana bhakti. Prabhupada also chanted Hare Krishna and japa beads. He also worshipped the deities. He read his own books besides writing them. He certainly served the devotees, and wherever he went, he made the place into a holy place, a place of pilgrimage. So he not only taught Krishna consciousness, but he lived it fully. And how much one could understand Prabhupada, his teachings, and live them, then they become on different levels of devotional service, either uttama or madhyama to us, or kanishta. Now, of course, if we think someone is kanishta, lower than us, and they think they're higher than us, or on the same level, then one should not instruct them, because that would be a waste of time. Those who want instruction, if we have the ability to give it to them to help them advance, then we should do that. But we shouldn't take it for granted that someone, just because they're younger than us in devotional service, or they have another service than we have, which is considered to be either lower in terms of maybe they're washing the pots and we're signing the checks in the temple. So we may imagine that that makes me an uttama to them, but they may not see things like that. And indeed, it may not be true. And therefore, we should understand, as Prabhupada writes in the 6th verse, that it's a natural relationship. We should not go by just the official relationships in terms of I joined the movement 3 weeks before you did, and therefore I'm an uttama. I'm your master forever. Even when we go back to the spiritual world, I'll remind you that I joined 3 weeks before you did, and you should surrender to me, even in the spiritual world. No, it's a natural relationship of love and appreciation, not just officially. Of course, officials should be there also. Not that you're the GBC or you're the temple president, I'm a new bhakta, but I don't accept you, I don't accept any authority above myself because I'm naturally the best authority that exists. That would not be very helpful for our advancement in devotional service. Even Sanatana Goswami, when the Nawab Hussain Shah came to visit him, Sanatana Goswami was studying Srimad Bhagavatam with some brahmanas. He was ready to renounce his position in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. So Nawab Hussain Shah, out of concern, came to visit him. And when he saw that Sanatana Goswami, who had claimed that he was on sick leave, that Sanatana Goswami was perfectly healthy, Nawab was quite concerned that why are you pretending to be sick when you're actually healthy? So Sanatana Goswami understood that Nawab Hussain Shah, the emperor, well, I guess the king at least, or maybe the emperor of Bengal, was a meat eater, not at all advanced in spiritual life. Still, he offered him all respects because of his position as the king. And as Prabhupada explains, that it is not by accident that someone gets into an exalted position. It is all by Krishna's arrangement. And therefore, naturally, in the material world, some people are situated in a higher position and some people in a lower position. But we should respect their position. Devotional service means that we have to learn respect. Sometimes the respect is shown externally and sometimes it's shown internally. But after all, we're spiritual beings. And everything besides ourselves is under Krishna's control. Of course, we have to use our intelligence, how we show respect. In this case, when the king comes, and we should show him respect as a king. As I've often said, if we see a tiger in the zoo, although he's also the manifestation of Krishna's energy, but generally speaking, we don't go into his cage and offer obeisances, dandavats to the tiger, touch his lotus paws, and say, I'm sorry, I was in Maya, I didn't really understand that you're a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Please accept my obeisances. That would not be a good idea. It would not be appropriate to offer dandavats inside the cage of the tiger, asking him for forgiveness for any offense we've made to him, thinking that he was just an ordinary tiger rather than the energy of Krishna. If you're very advanced, if you want to find out how advanced you are, you can do that because there are devotees who've done that successfully, like Murari Gupta or Murari Chaitanya Das. He was so advanced that he could go into the jungle and find tigers, chase after them, capture them, slap their faces, and they were quite satisfied. They would start to purr instead of growl. Sometimes he'd find venomous snakes and put them on his lap and play with them. But the real test is if what he did, he'd stay underwater for 3 days chanting Hare Krishna. No, we should probably start with half a day rather than try for 3 days underwater chanting Hare Krishna, or maybe 5 minutes. In any case, it is not possible to imitate successfully a Mahabhagavat such as Mori Chaitanya Das. So we should, according to our level of intelligence, we should learn how to offer respect to others. In any case, as Prabhupada says in the sixth verse, which we're reading today, that we have to learn how to see devotees not externally, although we can see them externally in the sense that, as in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime, there was Bhagavan Acharya who was lame. Therefore, one should not imagine that Bhagavan Acharya was not, if we were there in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, that he wasn't lame. He was lame. It did not impede his devotional service. Just like the example is given that the moon apparently has some marks on it. It's not perfect, but still the marks do not impede the effulgence of the moon, the glowing rays of the moon. Similarly, a Mahabhagavat, such as Bhagavad Acharya, from his heart diffuses, as it says in the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 18, I believe, under Uttama Bhakti, from his heart diffuses rays of bhakti, of love, due to his ecstatic devotion to Krishna and his absorption in the loving pastimes of Krishna. From his heart emanates ecstatic love, as bright, more bright than 1,000 suns. So whether Bhagavad Acharya was lame, or Garuda, or Chaitanya was a bird who got defeated by Ravana, these external activities or manifestations we can recognize, but we should understand they do not impede the ecstatic love that a devotee has within himself. Similarly, if we judge devotees externally by their sex or by their race or the country they come from, this is considered to be materialistic consciousness. One should try to understand how the devotees are consistently engaged in sadhana bhakti under the instructions of the Uttama Bhakti, the acharyas in our disciple succession, and how they're enthusiastic in their service. This is the most important thing about a devotee's activities. One may not be perfect. For instance, Prabhupada gives the example, one may be dirty, but if one is in the shower, it's useless to criticize the person for being dirty because they're in the shower, they're being cleansed. So similarly, one who's engaged in devotional service, especially those who have understood that they're eternal servants of Krishna and therefore not acting on the materialistic ego or the false ego platform, but instead are acting as a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, they should be offered respects, obeisances. Now, Prabhupada further goes on that in India, there was a class of men called the Goswamis, and they thought they had a monopoly on devotional service, and that other Goswamis who were born outside of India, outside their Goswami caste, were not bona fide Goswamis. But Prabhupada said that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, by his preaching and by his behavior, defeated these persons from the Nityananda Goswami Vangsa and established that anyone from any part of the world, by engaging in devotional service, can become a bona fide sannyasi, a bona fide devotee, and advance towards the highest perfection of life. In any case, Prabhupada also cautions us, well, he tells us that it is not possible for a neophyte devotee to understand the exalted position of a Mahabhagavat. Only when one comes to the platform of Uttama Bhakti can one understand who's on that platform. On the other hand, one should be trained to come to the Madhyama Adhikari platform, where one can understand that the goal of life is to love Krishna. And that love is manifested in practical service to Krishna, especially to the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as well as one's behavior, developing the good qualities of a devotee. And there are 26 of them that Prabhupada mentions in the Nectar of Devotion. The devotee is kind to everyone. He doesn't quarrel with anyone. He's fixed in the absolute truth. He doesn't eat more than required, etc. So there are qualities of a devotee, of a pure devotee, that one should try to develop and one should try to recognize who has those qualities more than we do, because we need examples of how to advance. Either we're following an example which is in the line of the acharyas, or naturally we'll have to follow some other example outside of the line of the acharyas. The line of the acharyas are the ones, those examples will help us. And therefore we should try to identify those examples and those who are following the acharyas more than we are, and take them as our examples. And of course, the standard, such as Srila Prabhupada, should always be there within our consciousness. Otherwise, how can we recognize how much and how often, how consistently one is following someone like Srila Prabhupada? In any case, appreciation for anyone who's following Srila Prabhupada is there. But those who are following more than we are, we should give them more appreciation and understand that those are the examples that we should follow, who are giving us an example of the exalted position of Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, Prabhupada writes in the 6th verse, which we're going over today, that the neophyte is always situated as the disciple, and the advanced devotee is always situated as the spiritual master. So this is, just like I said before, this is a natural position. It is a voluntary position. It is not simply an official position. Of course, we run the risk, if we have no knowledge, of not understanding who's actually more advanced than we are, then we may make offenses, or we will make offenses. And if we think everyone is more advanced than we are, and they're actually not strictly following the acharyas, or not following more than we are, or they're not following the acharyas, then the result is that we may do the wrong things. If someone thinks that I should make some money for the deities by going to Las Vegas and gambling at a casino, and I'll give at least half the money to the deities that I make, that's not an acharya that we should follow. Of course, if he makes a lot of money, then we should accept the donation, but we should not follow the example of gambling Krishna's money. Therefore, one has Krishna consciousness called Buddhi Yoga. We have to use our intelligence devotionally and develop a vision of who to serve and how to serve appropriately in these loving exchanges, and in such a way that we can make spiritual advancement and help others do the same. But Prabhupada laments at the end of the purport that although Krishna Shakti Vininahi Tar Pravartana, although Prabhupada was so much empowered by his Acharya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, and the entire disciple succession to spread Krishna consciousness, otherwise it could not have spread all over the world. Prabhupada could not have simultaneously written so many books, initiated so many devotees, and instructed them perfectly, traveled all over the world and created the Hare Krishna movement all over the world, unless he was empowered by the potency of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna Shakti Vinanayi Tar Pravartana. And so Prabhupada lamented that his godbrothers, although they could perceive his exalted activities and the results of such exalted activities, still did not appreciate his endeavor. And therefore they remained on the lowest level of devotional service due to the lack of proper discrimination. On the other hand, Prabhupada praises persons even such as George Harrison, who were not as exalted as his godbrothers, but still George Harrison gave donations, he chanted the holy name, and above everything, he appreciated Srila Prabhupada's exalted position. So we should remember that Srila Prabhupada is just not an ordinary personality, and that those who follow him, they also, by following him, they're no longer ordinary personalities, as much as they understand and follow his instructions too. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Can you hear the subway there? Can you hear the subway?
No.
Anyhow, I can hear it. If you come to New York, you can listen to the music. New York has a very special music in it. The subway, the ambulances, there's so many different things that you normally in most cities you don't get to hear, but you can hear everything here. Thakur Haridas Das. You have a question? Thakur Haridas? Are you frozen? There you go. Can you hear me? Do you have a question? Your hand is there. I think you're frozen. Antaryami. Did you have a question?
I'm not on Dayami, but I'm Gerald, but I have a question.
Is that Thakur Haridas speaking?
No, it's Gerald.
What's that?
Gerald.
Gerald. But right now, Antaryami, please raise your hand, Bhakti Gerald. No, do you know how to raise it on the that yellow hand? Anyhow,
No,
we'll put you in line.
I raised my natural hand.
Okay.
There you go.
Antaryami, are you listening to me?
Yes, yes.
Ты меня слышишь?
Did you ask the question? And Mother Levangalata can translate it.
Я хотел спросить, если можно, по вчерашней лекции по Бхагавад-гите. Можно это?
Мгм.
Вопрос в том, что вчера в Бхагавад-гите было сказано, что энергия Господа, увеличивающая продолжительность нашей жизни. мы разбирали энергии Господа, и среди них есть также такая, которая увеличивает продолжительность нашей жизни. И недавно я давал Бхагаватам здесь на Варшане, тоже вот у нас живой Бхагаватам, и там, в частности, 7.9, там говорилось о том, что Господь Брахма потратил 100 лет свои на то, чтобы он нырнул в океан и пытался найти Господа вовне. Причину лотоса, на котором он оказался, родился, он пытался найти вовне и потратил на это 100 лет, купаясь в этом океане причинном. И насколько я вот знаю, вопрос мой в чем? Вроде бы как я читал в других местах в книгах Прабхупады, что предопределена продолжительность жизни человека, даже сколько вдохов он сделает, сколько биений сердца, и что жизнь Брахмы тоже равна 100 его годам, как и 100 лет живет бабочка, 100 лет живет человек, свою продолжительность 100 лет. А там вот могли бы вы пояснить, как это особая милость Господа для него, что он вот 100 лет купался, а потом... То есть,
Это очень дорого.
все, я закончил.
Okay. So Maharaj, yesterday during your lecture, Bhagavad Gita lecture, you mentioned that the Lord has an energy that extends the lifespan of a human being.
Yeah, maybe a couple of days.
Okay. So the question is that Lord Brahma, he was meditating on the Lord and he was searching for the answers outside himself for about 100 years. Isn't that the duration of his life? Was his life extended by the Lord after this 100 years searching period, or Lord Brahma, when he was on the lotus and there was nobody else, he was searching around for 100 years? Was that an example? And that
No.
Okay.
It
Это
said
не
not
было
hundreds of
примером.
years. He was searching for thousands of years, our years, not his years, our years. He was searching for 10,000s of years, but not his years, our years. He lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, so 100 million of our years is nothing for him. Okay. Thakur Haridas?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance. Hare Krishna,
Hare
devotees, please accept my humble obeisance. Guru Maharaj, when somebody gives a class, we supposed to speak also about our experiences in Krishna consciousness. Did Guru Maharaj say that Srila Prabhupada once like that?
No, I said when we explain, for instance, quoting from authority, because we don't make any real advancement unless we're serving the authority. The ultimate authority is Paramatma, who spoke Bhagavad Gita. So we recite a verse like Samam Sarveshu Bhuteshu Tishtantam Parameshwaram Vinasva Vinashantam Yak Pashyati Sapashyati. One who can see the soul and the super soul within all bodies, and who knows that neither the soul nor the super soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, he actually sees. Now we can explain that verse according to our own experience. That's what we're supposed to do. And we can explain it according to Prabhupada has given us purport so that we can understand from his point of view and explain how we've understood his point of view. Not only Krishna's point of view, but Srila Prabhupada's point of view, which will help us elaborate on Krishna's point of view. That's what we're supposed to do. And
We're
even
supposed to do both?
What's that?
We're supposed to do both?
Well, we're supposed to explain things in Krishna consciousness according to how we've understood it. But our subject matter is Krishna, according to the authorities of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And then explain. Now, in ordinary dealings, not everyone is interested in our philosophy. So we may have to work according to what we consider natural behavior. Like Srila Prabhupada was walking And sometimes people would say, good morning. And Prabhupada would say, good morning. Because his good morning had some spiritual potency behind it. But he didn't start lecturing people who walked by and said good morning. He acted as what would be considered to be more natural behavior by most people. So we're not trying to agitate people's minds, but they say good morning, and we go up to them and say, have you chanted Hare Krishna today? They're just trying to be friendly, and we're trying to preach to them, but they didn't ask us to preach to them. They just expect some normal behavior, like saying good morning also. So we should use our intelligence so that we impress people more by our gentlemanly behavior, by trying to convince them that they should surrender to Krishna every moment. If that's not how they're approaching us, we should reciprocate naturally according to how people approach us, now how we think they should approach us. Bhakti Gerald.
Thank you, Guru.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. You're muted, Bhakti Gerald.
Oh, my apologies. Hare Krishna, my obeisance. Guru Maharaj. So you use Guru Maharaj Sri Udema, Madhyama, and Kanista. So one is more enthusiastic, one is same level, and one is lower than us. So the term Kanista, is it a derogatory term, or is it one when you judge or the person is not so advanced? Just being factual, and maybe you're drawn to offer more encouragement and support because you see they kind of newer to the movement, or maybe they don't read as much and they need a bit of support. Or is it a good a term derogatory a bit, or is it something fine when it's applied nicely?
I think you have the Mother Lavanga Lata. Can you understand what he's saying?
Yes, I can understand. Thank you. I
Okay,
can
good.
follow. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Bhakti Gerald. No, Kanista is just, Madhya means middle, Uttama means top, Kanista means lower.
Hmm.
But there are different marks of a Kanista Adhikari given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, such as the Kanista Adhikari. They engage in devotional service, but principally they only understand that Krishna is God and that the acharyas, they're also on the same level as Krishna. But to ordinary people or to other devotees, they don't know how to behave properly. So that's called kanista. They don't know how to engage in proper service to others. They only know how to serve the deity and the most advanced devotees.
Okay.
Well, the Madhyama Adhikari, in our terminology, he understands he should love Krishna, he should make friends with the devotees, he should help the innocent, and he should avoid those who are against Krishna. Okay?
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Niguna Das?
Yeah, Maharaj, Hare Krishna, my bashar. I wondered about, I don't know if I asked you in the past, but what is the significance of that Balaram is Duryodhana guru? Why is it like that? We know that Duryodhana is evil and Balaram is always supporting him and wants him to marry.
Well, those kind of questions, of course, are not exactly following the line of the talk. And generally those things may be distracting. But since you're the last question, all I can say is that Balaram and Krishna, when they come here, they engage in pastimes. So if they only engage in pastimes with their pure devotees, they leave out practically the rest of the universe. Therefore, Balaram instructed Duryodhana because he was part of Krishna's pastime. For instance, Bhima needed someone to fight with, so Duryodhana was an enemy of Bhima, so Balaram empowered Duryodhana so it could be a good fight with Bhima at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Otherwise, Mahabharata wouldn't be so exciting, and no one would read it, unless Krishna and Balaram sometimes helped the demons and empowered them. After all, Krishna is empowering everyone. What to speak of Duryodhana? He empowered Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha. They're all empowered by Krishna, not only Duryodhana. As Prahlad Maharaj, when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, where did you get your power from? So Prahlad Maharaj said, from the same person you got from God. So Paramatma is empowering everyone, instructing them. So externally, apparently, Balaram is instructing a demon, but internally, as the super soul, he instructs all the demons. Is that right?
Sounds right, yes.
Good. All right. Thank you very much. Grantharaj Shrimad Nectar of Instruction, Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
Jai.
Day. Hari
Hari
Bol.
Hari Bol. Hare Krishna
Hare
Gurudev.
Bol.
Hare
Much.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.